So we'll focus on to these nanomaterials. First, these two approaches are the microreactor based approach, and second approach is the ultrasound based approach. So both approaches we are going to see in the detail, and basically we are focusing on to the different kinds of applications are there. So I discussed earlier that the the tau mixing should be a little greater compared to the P reactions. At that time, it has large impact onto nanomaterials which have been produced. So basically, they have been impacting onto particle size distribution as well as morphology is one of the important um, of the property of a materials is required for application point of view. We are going to see both the things into detail, how the mixing has been impacting with an ultrasound as well as in the microreactor case. So other things, polymerization and organic reactions selectivity wise, it is important. And polymer, in case of polymers, molecular weight distribution is important. But we will focus only on to the particle size distribution and their morphology, how it has been impacting by this using the ultrasound and microreactor based methodology. So I will come back to this slide. Actually, you see, if you see, most of the methodologies, if you want to be have better distributions, basically you need to be have better mass transport. You can go ahead in the jacketed reactors. If you look, you will have the very less possibility of heat transport. But the mass transport wise, if you look, the rotating pack beds are there. Onto the top side, you can see the microreactors. In this case, heat and mass transfer both have been going to be held. I will come back to these slides again when we are going to be talked about. Uh, we'll talk about this microreactor time. At that time, I will discuss this. Now, in the morning, Professor Ashok has discussed about this cavitation phenomena, how the bubble formation occurs, and how the cavities are going to collapse, and what is the utilization of that cavity collision when it has been happen. Basically, a radical generation is one of the important aspect of cavitation, acoustic cavitation. And second, there are two important effects are there. One is the chemical effect, in which the acoustic cavitation is going to be helpful. Okay, in which in the acoustic cavitations, the micro mixing plays very important role for the nanoparticle production. So we can bring out this micro mixing or a physical effect using this acoustic cavitation. And to make it scale up wise, if you look, the hydrodynamic cavitation is one of the, I mean to say, we can scale up these reactors using this hydrodynamic cavitation methodology. So, morning Ashok has discussed about this acoustic cavitation. We will discuss about this hydrodynamic cavitations and how we can able to use it for the production of nanoparticles. We will take one or two example. For example, the calcium carbonate is there that we are going to be take as an one example. So other energy based cavitations are there. Obviously, it happens, but the intensity is quite a smaller. Particle to particle, when they collide, the energy intensity is very quite smaller. Or in the optical case, is also very much smaller. But these two are, we can utilize it for the conducting the chemical reactions in our case. Okay, so both these tension-based cavitations are important for us, which are been uh, designed, or we can utilize this as a chemical and physical uh, uh, effects for intensifying the any process. Okay, specifically for nanoparticles, we can able to use it. So in the morning, acoustic cavitation wise, Ashok has discussed about different types of equipments. For example, ultrasound bath. Usually, doctors use that earlier time used to be use an ultrasound bath for cleaning of these their equipments. So then ultrasound probe is there, as well as Horn type of ultrasound. We can use it at a laboratory scale. I already discussed hydrodynamic cavitations is basically happens. The cavitation is going to be happen when you are using the small conduits, maybe orifice or venturi, through the pipe, so that the upside pressure will be quite higher, and through the orifice or venturi, when the liquid comes out, the collision or the collapse, suddenly the pressure drops out, and because of that there will be the large difference in the velocity, and that's why the cavitation phenomena is going to be occur when we are using the slit venturis or maybe the orifices. So this cavitation, hydrodynamic based cavitations, we can utilize it for the production of different kind of nanomaterials. So acoustic cavitation already been described. We will say it is the when the high intensity ultrasound about 22 kilohertz, when 20 kilohertz above, when we pass through the reaction mixture, there will be the large compression and expansion is going to be occur, and because of that, there is a cavity formations is going to be formed, and when they are going to be collapse at that time, these hot spots are going to be developed in the liquid. Okay, and these are going to be very, I mean to say, the velocities are quite higher, maybe up to 1500 meter per second. Pressure is 200 bars near to that, and the temperature at a local condition, I am saying, it is around the 5000 K. So this is the, I mean to say, these are the hotspot developed conditions are there in which there is uh, high temperature, pressure, and the velocities are quite higher of these when you are sending the ultrasound into the reactor. So basically, if you look to the what the ultrasound is going to be help us, I will give one example of emulsion polymerization, mini emulsion polymerization. Basically, with an ultrasound, when we are using it, there is no initiator is required. For example, in the wastewater treatment, when we add the hydrogen peroxide, using this ultrasound cavitation, already the radical generation happens. So there is no need to be add as an initiator. So because of that, we can have this. We can call it as a green process. Second is the reaction paths are going to be changed using the ultrasound. So the mechanism is different than how the usual chemical reaction is going to be happen. As well as the reactions are being carried out at an ambient condition also. In some cases, I will give an example of a polymerization reaction. Then we can, using this ultrasound, if you look to the polymerization case, we will take example of butyl methacrylate or methyl methacrylate. These acrylates are butyl acrylate is the butyl methacrylate is hydrophobic in nature. So because of that, it comes to the cavities very fast, and because of that, polymerization is going to be occur. If you look to this conventional polymerization process, you will have this reaction of butyl methacrylate, PBMA, is going to be occur at a 65 degrees Celsius. While using this ultrasound-based emulsion polymerization, we can carry out this reaction at a normal temperature. And the one important advantage is whatever the latex is going to be formed, it is the unique methodology, we can say. We can bring out the latex slide, particles latex in the range of 10 to 100 nanometer. So we'll get a narrow particle size distribution, as well as the particle size or latex polymer size you can bring out below the 100 nanometer. So if you look to the mini emulsion polymerization, how it going to occur generally, if you say. So basically, you are adding the monomer, for example, butyl methacrylate in a water. So basically both are invisible. So there will be a separate phase will be there, phase separation. For to make it the emulsion, we are adding the surfactant. So it has to be the quantity should be at a critical micelle concentration. Because of that, the micelles are going to be formed, and then the droplet of emulsions are going to be formed of butyl methacrylate, let's say. But because of this ultrasound, you need to be it gives you then a higher shearing, and because of higher shearing, you will get a droplet size it quite a smaller in nature. I will show you in the next slides actually. So these are the some of the advantages I want to show you about this using the ultrasound. First important advantage is no need to be add the initiator. So in a conventional process, the initiator has been added, for example, ammonium persulfate (APS), and that is going to be give the impurities in the polymer also in the latter stage. But using this ultrasound, there is no need to be add the initiator, and because of that one, the S2O2 or the radical which is being generated during the cavitation, they have been makes the oligomer, and then it is going to be utilized. In the next slide, I will show you this the figure of how the ultrasound polymerization will happen. So this is a kind of a unique methodology in which the polymer latex we can bring it into the nanometric size. Okay, so these are the some of the advantages are there, like polymerization rate is quite faster. Conventional process it takes 1 hour to complete the polymerization reaction, but here in the within 20 minutes you can form the polymer. Polymer is always in this using this ultrasound emulsion polymerization. You can bring out it to smaller in size. Yeah, now you can see the ultrasound milli-emulsion polymerization, how it is happens. So this is basically red color is in a cavity bubble. Okay, when the this is an ultrasound horn, so maybe around 450 wattage ultrasound horn, if you use it, it gives you the intensive cavitation, and because of that, the cavity bubbles are going to be formed. So basically, if you look, what are the vapors have been there, water vapors which have been entrapped into the cavity, it forms the actually a radical. And I discussed with you earlier that butyl methacrylate or the monomer, which is hydrophobic in nature. So this monomer is always close into the contact with a cavity because of the hydrophobic in nature, and because of that, the oligomers are going to be formed during the when the cavity collision is been going to happen. So the radical are going to be attached with a monomer. Then this monomer oligomer is going to be entered into the monomer droplet, and because of that, the polymerization is going to be occur inside the droplet itself. So initially I told you that because of this cavitation, the droplet size, initial droplet size will be remain almost uniform, same. So let's say 50 nanometer size droplet is there. The final polymer latex droplet, polymer latex will be of almost of a 50 nanometer size. Okay, so this is the interesting things about the ultrasound assisted polymerization, and that latex is having the molecular weight distribution very narrow, as well as the particle size distribution. Latex size is also quite smaller. So you can see over this the left hand side graph. This is an sonication time. Maybe you can see here within 14 minutes of time, you can have this almost 40 to 60 nanometer size latex. Now, in the middle figure, see whatever it has been mentioned. As the time changes, you can see the color of a latex or the polymerization initially been initiated in the first case. Then the oligomers are going to be formed. It was somewhat bluish in color, and when the complete latex is going to be formed, it is a sticky in nature as well as complete polymerization is going to be happen. And you can see from this sonication time, within 16 minutes, we can able to achieve this 40 to 60 nanometer size latex size. Okay. Now, as I explained you earlier, you can see about this MMA, BMA, and ethyl hexamethacrylate. These are the three polymers, monomers. But in this case of three, ethyl hexamethacrylate is more hydrophobic in nature, and because of that, it comes to the closer to the cavities, and because of that, you will form the latex more in the molecular weight. So as it going to be more hydrophilic in nature, for example, methyl methacrylate is more hydrophilic in nature. So because of that, what is going to be happen? The monomer won't going to be so much close onto the cavity, and because of that, it will always remain in the water phase. And as it is in a hydrophilic in nature, overall conversion wise, if you look, there is always a lesser conversion you will find when the hydrophilic monomer is there. So as the monomer is more hydrophobic in nature, you will find the more conversion. So almost 80% polymerization, or you can reach up to the 90% polymerization when the butyl methacrylate is there, or EHMA is there polymer. So these kind of properties of the nature of a chemical or monomer is going to be impact very much during the cavitation process. So as it is more in a hydrophobic nature, we can carry out the nanoparticle, inorganic nanoparticle encapsulation into this polymer also during this mini emulsion polymerization. So you can now understand that what are the different advantages are there. So first is no need of an initiator, no need to be use an initiator. Second important thing is latex size. Polymer latex size you can obtain using ultrasound cavitation into the nanometer range. This is more important. Within short period of time, you get an polymerization. Conventionally, if you look, it is always been goes to auto acceleration, and the molecular weight doesn't remain in a control. So polymerization, molecular weight also we can bring out controlled molecular weight using this ultrasound mini emulsion polymerization. So now onto the graph, you can see this is the right hand side graph. You can see that the latex side, this has been taken the images using the cryo TM. So you can see this is an scale is of 50 nanometer. So you can see the size of this each latex may be near to the 50 or maybe less than 80 nanometer size. So these are the almost, if you look, the size of this latex is almost uniform. Okay, as well as in the nanometer in the size. So what will be the advantage we can take up this latex actually? So the attempt is been made in when I was worked into the Melbourne. We did this latex. We added some conducting polymer into that, and we prepared a photo anode. So using the conductive glass, we coated this latex, and you can see the current generation onto the left hand side figure. So small amount of current we can able to generate, and this latex is very easy to coat onto the conductive glass surface. So this is one advantage you can get it using this nano latex formation using this mini emulsion polymer emulsion. Same latex we can able to use it into maybe corrosion inhibition coatings, or maybe any energy related supercapacitors or energy related applications or solar cell. So these are the one important application I want to say about this functional latex. So this is the second example I told you about these corrosion inhibition coatings. So the same latex, we can add the inorganic particles. You can see these are the almost uniformly latex has been prepared using ultrasound. In this one, the zinc oxide particles have been encapsulated into the each latex. Okay, and this will going to be give you in a corrosion inhibition methodology. You can see onto the left hand side the Tafel plot. about individual latex, uncoated mild steel, and the zinc oxide and polybutyl methacrylate. So basically, E-core is going to be reduced using this latex formation. So this is one of the second application I'm telling you about this latex, how we can utilize this. All these things how you can even compare to the earlier butyl methacrylate latex, you can see it is almost uniform into the polymer size. Okay, so the bottom plates what has been shown, these are the all uh, bare MS panel and then coating and onto it, and then later taken these images to understand how the corrosion is been happening onto this coating, or how corrosion inhibitions is been uh, happened because of this latex coating. So one more application I want to tell you is regarding this using this ultrasound cavitation. We can make it as a, I mean to say, hybrid latex preparations. We can prepare it. So hybrid latex could be utilized to be in the solar cell application. That can be one of the good area in which the inorganic particle, for example, TiO2, we can put it surrounding to the polymer latex itself. So this is giving you some mechanism how it has been happening. So you can see that monomer droplets initially we prepared using this ultrasound, and because of high shearing effect, mechanical effect or physical effect, the droplet size is a smaller. Already we discussed that cavity bubbles are going to be once they impulse or collapse at that time, the radical generation is being going to be happen, and because of that monomer is going to be the oligomer is going to be entered into the latex, into monomer droplet, and then polymerization is going to be happen. Now there is one more possibility that we can encapsulate the inorganic particle into that. So for that purpose, we need to functionalize this inorganic particle first using, let's say, the myristic acid, so that it will remain in the organic phase, and then we can prepare the different kind of morphologies. For example, inorganic particles have been surrounded with a polymer latex. So this is in a kind of functionalized. You can have this inorganic core and polymer latex. So here is kind of polymer latex, which is on which you can attach the inorganic core. So these are the methodologies by which we can prepare these hybrid particles, which are the number of applications are there. Now I will give one more example what we have discussed earlier about polybutyl methacrylate. Now let us take one more example, what it is called as a Janus nanoparticles. So the word Janus is been taken from the Greece god, what is having the two different faces within a single entity. But the meaning wise in our chemical processes, what we'll take is the of a single particle which is having the different chemical properties. Okay. For example, if I take the last this one figure, if you see the polystyrene is there, in which these are the magnetic nanoparticles are there. Along with that, silicon oxide is there. So polymer will have the different chemical property, and the inorganic SiO2 will have the different property. And this is magnetic particles are there. For example, the iron particles, if you put it into this one, we can have this magnetic effect also. So the methodology is magnetite. Let's say if you have particle initially you discussed, I discussed with you that there are always a two-phase system when the emulsion is being prepared. So the one phase is an organic phase, let's say, in which contains your magnetite particles. Then this is an aqueous phase in which the surfactant is being added above the critical micelic condition. So these magnetic particles, initially we need to be functionalized first. then and then it will remain into this organic phase. Otherwise, it will go into the aqueous phase. So you can carry out the sonication, high wattage, maybe around 450. With a probe sonicator, if you use it, these particles, magnetic particles, are going to be go inside the monomer phase. Later, later we can add the silicon oxide or TOS, what we can say. So this is then a mixture of styrene, EOS, silane, MPS, and magnetic nanoparticles. So after this one, we can carry out the sonication. So polymerization is going to be start inside your polymer latex. Then surrounding to that one, the after a certain condition of a after 10 minutes, we can add this EOS, and then you will have this latex. So you will have this final formation of polystyrene latex, which is having the magnetic kind of property along with the SiO2. So I mean to say this kind of fluid, we can polymeric solution we can prepare, which can give you the magnetic property. So this is an interesting things about this ultrasound cavitation. The polystyrene particles latex will be again into the nanometric size, which have been encapsulated inside the core will be the magnetic particle. Surrounding it, it will have the silicon oxide particle. So this is the methodology we can utilize it for the catalytic reactions, which this Janus particle, which is having the two different phases, okay, or two different chemical and physical properties. We can utilize this latex particle, Janus particle for the catalytic application. So this is one methodology again how these Janus particles have been formed through this cavitation process. So one more example I will give here is we can prepare the conductive inorganic coatings also. For example, uh, polyaniline with a calcium carbonate that can be utilized for the again corrosion inhibition coatings. So onto the left hand side, you can see about this Tafel plot, and these are the coatings applications which have been carried out for the anti-corrosion agent. So because of this polyaniline, you will have the conductivity also, and in that resin, you can add this syrup of emulsion one into alkyd resin to make it the overall coating. Now, I will give one more example about clay particle. This is I mean to say the ultrasound has a limited application here, but I will, as a nanotechnology wise, this area wise, I would like to give more details about how nano clay is being utilized. Actually, clay, if you look, it is what we call the smectite based is the major origin actually, and all the clays have the common chemical name is aluminosilicate, in which alumina and silica is there. So if you look to the normal clay in India, it is whatever the most of the clay is available is in a bentonite kind of clay. Mostly the sources of a clay is in Kutch, Rajasthan, Kutch and Rajasthan. These are the two major sources. But the iron content, sodium-based bentonite, mostly find in the Rajasthan, and that we can utilize the clay to make it an nano clay. Now, what is the interesting things about the clay is it is basically each clay 8 micron size particle if you take, it will have the layered structure. So it contains the number of layer gallery spacing between the clay platelets. So each clay particle will have almost 800 to 1000 platelets which have been put into the single clay. So this structure was a unique structure in which we can separate out each platelet, and that kind going to be help you to improve the properties such as mechanical property, tensile strength, and flex modulus and impact strength. So actually, if you look to the how this nano clay is been invented, actually Toyota is the company who has initially invented this nano clay. Uh, in the 19th, in the 1999, the Toyota was thinking that we need to be replace most of the automotive parts using this polymeric material. Earlier, they were using the filler as a talc, but the problem was that because of addition of a talc, let's say if you want to make a dashboard or a bumper, almost 40% of a filler we have to use it. And because of that, the properties was not improving much, but the weight is going to be increased. So they thought that why we should not have a kind of a filler which will could be very addition could be in a smaller in size, but is going to give you the equivalent property of the filler addition around 30 to 40%. So for that purpose, they started searching the material and they found that the clay in abroad, it is called as the Montmorillonite clay. Basically, Montmorillonite clay is being found in the USA, some countries of Europe and Japan. So then they have started utilizing this clay. They made it. This basically it is called as an Fe based or Na based sodium based Montmorillonite clay or sodium based bentonite clay. So one more interesting property of this clay material is it has very high cation exchange capacity. If you look to the right hand side figure, this is a clay gallery spacing in between. These are all the spacings. These are all the functional. What I meant to say. Um, Functional groups are present. So we can attach the long chain surfactant into that, and because of that, overall cation exchange capacity is going to be increased. For example, normal clay, if you take, the cation exchange capacities may be around 60 to 70 milliequivalent per cc. But as you go and going to be increase the functionalization using the large functional group surfactant, the cation exchange capacity is going to be almost 120 to 150. So this will going to be gives a major advantage that you are going to increase the cation exchange capacity as well as you are getting the single platelet if you are exfoliate it. Exfoliate means to separate it. It is like a number of cards which have been kept into the into it is like a playing cards kept onto each other. But each playing card, if you separate it out, then your surface area is going to be increased. Similar fashion, if you exfoliate each platelet, the um, the the surface area is going to increase as well as cation exchange capacity is also going to be increased. So what is going to be useful as I discussed about this Toyota, what they did is they used this only a nanoclay functionalize it using the high cation exchange surfactant, and they have been utilized it for the composite. For example, dashboard. Using the same composite, they prepared the trim also as well as the step assist, which usually been used to the in the cars to be go inside the car before the door. So step assist was also been prepared, which is have the equivalent strength of the earlier they have been using the steel material. So using the 2.5% addition of this clay material itself, it is going to be give the strength around almost a 30% increase, which is equivalent to the your 30% of normal filler material is being utilized. So this is the one more applications I would like to show you. Now this exfoliation is very much important. This is an intercalation. So you can see these are the blue lines are there. These are the basically polymer chains which have been put inside the clay gallery spacing. So you can carry out the exfoliation also. So here is the role of ultrasound comes into the picture. Using this ultrasound, we can exfoliate or we can separate each layer, each platelet, and that can be going to be strength the polymer composite overall mechanical properties. So this is one good example, and commercially it has been viable process. People have been already been utilizing it into industry. So for specifically in automotive industry. So the one more application I would like to tell is we can utilize this nanoclay for using for the wastewater treatment. For example, inside gallery spacing, I will replace the sodium or maybe iron or Fe or calcium ions using the zinc, or I will load the surfactant and then I attach the zinc oxide, and I will utilize this clay for the photocatalytic process. So we can prepare a CSTR process, a CSTR kind of methodology, and we can put the clay, what is coat it onto the steel plate and putting the UV light. We can utilize it for the degradation of the uh, organic matter. So this is one good example. Now we will go through the one more important methodology, what is called as an atomization process. Okay, atomization is what is the meaning of atomization is the droplets. So this the vehicle engine in which the liquid fuel is being injected in the atomized form, or even the I mean to say the atomization has a number of application in the industry scale wise. Now, can we? But the issue with this atomization process is that the droplet size may not be uniform. Second thing is the the droplet sometimes is going to be formed in the slit form. So these are the some of the issues are there. Can we have the same kind of or the smaller size of a droplet with a uniform distribution is usually requires in a number of applications. So this is the one of the important aspect of atomization. Now, using this ultrasound, we can prepare these droplets in a quite smaller in size compared to the conventional air-based pressure methodologies or maybe in aeration methodologies to produce the droplets. Why we are thinking, I mean to say, if you look to the nanoparticle production, some of the cases atomization process have been utilized. But in that case, again, the droplet size is going to be affect onto the morphology as well as the nanoparticle deposition. So to bring out these limitations, it can be happen through using this ultrasound atomization process. Now let us look to the uh, methodology that atomization you can generate a droplets. I discussed with that for the nanoparticles narrow size distribution is very much important and the application point of view. So the conventional methods, if you look, this will give you the submicron as well as wide distribution of a droplets, as well as when they are depositing onto the surface, for example for the solar panel, catalytic materials which is being deposited. So in that case, the droplet formation, if it is uniform, so the morphology or the shape will also be uniform, and overall efficiency is going to be increased. So can we, using this ultrasound, we can produce this uniform kind of a droplets using this ultrasound methodology. So there is also, it is called as a mist reaction also. You can vaporize two liquids and let the reaction happen into the mist form. So using this one, mist reactions, you will have the, obviously the reaction will be happen, going to be happen into at a very localized condition, and because of that, distribution always remain into the narrow size. So ultrasonic atomization, that is going to be give you very smaller in droplet size. I will show you the figure how it works, as well as deposit will be of a particular shape what you want. For example, in a solar case, let's say going to deposit in a TiO2. In that case, the TiO2 morphology, if it is the rod kind of shape you required, so if you conventional sealer method, if you utilize it to produce these nanoparticles, at that case, every time you will get a different kinds of shape of TiO2 particles. So in place of that, to make it, we have the uniform shapes, let's say rod kind of structures, we can able to get through this ultrasound atomization methodology. So it is basically happens based on the relay mechanism, how the ultrasound probe is there, like in the Ashok might have shown you in the morning. In the ultrasound probe itself, the liquid comes through the probe, and through the probe, the atomization happens, and the liquid is going to be flushed out from the orifice once it deposit onto the surface. So onto the tip surface, and then you will get a uniform smaller droplet size. Okay, so it is very important that overall things have been depends of nanoparticle shape and structures onto this droplet size. So we need to be see which are the important parameters are there which are going to be affect onto this nano size production using this atomization methodology. So in this case, just I will take a 2 minutes break. I will come back.
So, dear participants, there will be 2 minutes break. You please be there. Within 2 minutes, the expert will rejoin. Oh.
Dr. Shriram, can I start now? Hello?
Please start. We are waiting.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a very important issue that how the droplet size is going to be affected by which different parameters. Basically, it has been affected by the viscosity, the surface tension of a liquid. These are the two important things. And atomization parameter wise, the orifice size. So these three parameters are going to be affect onto droplet, and these droplets are going to be affect onto the nanoparticle sizes. So we must need to be think on the developing in such a kind of correlation. It is very much well-known correlation by the Lang, Professor Lang, is based on the atomization process. So it contains your surface tension, viscosity, density of a particle, and the orifice size. Okay. So this correlation, how it has been developed, that I will just explain you. So you can see this is an ultrasound atomization process. Onto the right hand side, you can see how the droplets are going to be formed over here. So this is an ultrasound generator. So it is kind of the same way how the ultrasound probe it is there, in which through the orifice the droplets are going to be formed and they are going to be spread out. So based on the relay mechanism, the swiping of the liquid is going to be happen once the it comes onto the tip of the liquid, the tip of this atomizer, and because of that, the smaller droplets are going to be formed. Now, how to understand the what is the droplet size? Basically, we can use the micro lens to a high shutter speed camera. For example, the shutter speed should be maybe around 6,000 to 10,000 frame per second. So that camera, if you capture the images and then using the image processing software, you can utilize to we find out the what is called suture diameter of this droplet. So these are the droplets are there through this image processing. We can find out the droplet size. Now you can see what I was discussing about this, how it has been impacting. Onto the middle figure, if you look, these are the nano wires or nano rods, you can say. You can see it. So this has a lot of application. For example, I can utilize these nano rods to be put it onto top of them, top of these rods. I can put some quantum dots. For example, PPS, what it is been shown over here. So one nanorod, if you look, this is an maybe of a diameter of 100 nanometer size. So with an almost uniformity, the shape of the nanorods you can able to get through this ultrasound atomization process. And this has the number of applications I told you with the solar cell kind of energy devices. So this is the nanorods and how droplet size has been impacting onto. So you can optimize this parameter viscosity, surface tension, and that will have the impact onto the droplet size, and then we can optimize the your process parameters so that the nanorods sizes will be almost uniform and in the nanometric size. So this is overall case about this ultrasound atomization process. So the same way I discussed with you, these are the nanorods are there. For example, zinc oxide nanowires. We can put it over the previous quantum dots. This is an ITO glass. So this kind of methodology, depositions, we can utilize it for the solar cell. So it is very interesting that if you don't have the nanowires, so obviously your surface area will be smaller, and because of that, I mean to say, these are PBS quantum dots are nothing but your sensitizers. You can attach onto the top or maybe inside the two nanowires. So this is a methodology. Earlier methodology usually people have been adopting it was the CILAR methodology, which is based on the deposition using the seeding methodology. So which has the limitation that you cannot get in a particular morphology. For example, the desired morphology here is in a nanorods. So in case of a CILAR methodology, we cannot get the nanorod formation when you are change the let's say this liquid concentrations and the surface tensions, so you cannot able to get this one. Using this ultrasound atomization, we can able to make this what it is called the deposition. So you can see the current versus voltage onto this seeded as well as unseeded zinc oxide particles and nanorods for the solar cell application. So now let us discuss about this hydrodynamic based on a cavitation methodology, how we can commercially utilize it to produce these inorganic particles, or maybe some other particles I would take, for example, photocatalyst using the ultrasound methodology. Already Ashok has discussed about this, how the propagation of cavitation ultrasound waves happens in the liquid, continuous rarefaction and compression. It produces the hotspot and collapse of the radical collapse of the cavities is going to happen at a higher temperature and pressure. So these methodologies we can utilize it for the producing the photocatalyst. It is been, for example, zirconia bismuth. This is the kind of hybrid inorganic particles which will have the utilization of UV as well as the visible light. So this is a visible light photocatalyst. We can prepare it using this ultrasound cavitation. Now the cavitation, ultrasound cavitation time duration is also very much important. Sonication time, what we call, or irradiation time. If you look to the surface area using the, if you increase the ultrasound cavitation time, for example, sonication time, if you increase, you will get, let's say, the surface area maybe 120 meter meter square per gram. Later, after certain times, the fusion of a particle it is going to be occur. So it is very much important that the sonication time should be optimized first while you are producing this nanoparticle. So preparation soldier wise, if you look, the crystallite size is 14, but using the 30 minutes, you can go reach to the 60 minutes, you can have the 90 minutes, you can have the smaller crystallite size also. But it is very important that increasing this one, the overall size of the particles are going to be increased, because you are going giving the more time for the what is called the growth of the process. It is very much important to be see that surface area versus irradiation time. You need to be optimized when you are utilizing this ultrasound cavitation for producing these nanoparticles. Okay, now let us see about one more application. For example, the TF2 independently used as a photocatalyst, but using this, I mean to say, doping this TiO2, we can have increased the overall degradation capacity of this photocatalyst. So using this ultrasound reactor, we can dope this particle also, TiO2 particle. Okay, and the same one we can utilize for this photocatalytic activity, and the combination of ultrasound along with the Hinton catalyst or maybe hybrid methodology you can utilize for the treatment of wastewater. So this is one application, that doping of particles or hybrid inorganic particles, you can depict it using this ultrasound cavitation methodology, and they would be in the nano size. So this is one methodology we can utilize for wastewater treatment. So cerium you can dope it with a TiO2, Fe you can dope with a TiO2, and this doping you can carry out using this ultrasonication, and then after calcinations you have this inorganic. There is also one application I will discuss in detail about this hydrodynamic cavitation. But understand that using this ultrasound and hydrodynamic cavitation, let's say I will put the doped particles, TiO2 particles in the into reactor. Along with that, I will use a hydrodynamic cavitation. So it is basically a hybrid treatment system you can utilize using these for the treatment of a wastewater. So independently within a hydrodynamic cavitation, let's say venturi is being used, slit venturi, it is going to be give some degradation around, let's say, 10%. But a combination of a methodologies, let's say HC per photophenton methodology, this will give you the overall synergistic effect because of contents of photocatalyst, and you will get reduction of total organic carbon, or maybe uh, the COD content in the process. So it is very much interesting that nanoparticles we can utilize in the advanced oxidation process along with a hybrid methodology to degrade the organic contents. Okay. Now, next example we will take about this nano container. Actually, nano container is I mean to say, kind of small storage device, okay, in which we can utilize it for the release case. Okay, we can carry out the encapsulation methodology. For example, nanotubes, if you look, carbon nanotubes, cost wise of carbon nanotubes is quite higher. So as well as the production methodologies which have been there, which is not going to be give the all the uniformity what is required, maybe tube diameter and the length, etc. So one of the interesting natural clay it is what it is called halloysite. It is again the alumina silicate. But interesting things about the halloysite tube is the inside lamella. There is again the functional groups are there, and these porous tubes we can utilize it for the storage of some what we call the active ingredients, and the release we can able to going to be utilize it. For example, perfumery industries, they have been utilizing these kaolin glaze tubes actually to add some the perfumery material inside that, and the release is going to be happen at the time, let's say, the pH changes. So halloysite tubes are very low cost natural material, clay material is been available. It is environmentally, I mean to say, very much compatible with that. It is almost neutral. So we can encapsulate this one using the polyelectrolyte assembly, and control release also we can able to do it. So one example I told you, for example, perfumery industry. Second is the micronutrient release. We can carry it out using these halloysite nanotubes. So in that case, for example, there is the micronutrients for plants. If you want to use it for grapes, for example, number of micronutrients have been required, and the this cost of micronutrients is quite higher in case of, for example, grape plants are there. In that case, for example, gibberellic acid, if you look, the cost of gibberellic acid is quite higher. It is being used as a stimulator for the. In that case, most of the gibberellic acid is going to be waste when we are spraying onto the grape plant. In such a case, the halosite nanotubes, we can utilize it to add this gibberellic acid inside these tubes, and the release is going to be happen based on the pH is going to be changed. So it is very good mechanism using these nanotubes, halosite-based nanotubes, we can utilize for the sustainable release control condition. So this there is also one more application in case of corrosion inhibition case. So we can utilize a self-healing mechanism using these halosite nanotubes. So in that one, we can add the healing agent. So how the let's say if there is an effect onto skin, the blood comes out, but it's going to be formed and clotting is going to be happen. Similar fashion, self-healing mechanism is very much interesting phenomena which is being utilized. For example, the tire is tubeless tire is there. In that case, the self-healing mechanism it happens if there is a puncture. So similar fashion, this corrosion inhibition is self-healing along with the releasing of corrosion inhibition agent. We can bring out using this nano container based methodology. So there are a number of applications are there. So I will just show you this methodology how it is being prepared. So these are the inorganic, let's say inorganic nanotubes in which inhibitor is being loaded. Surrounding to that one, you can have the assembly of a polyelectrolyte. Okay, when the pH is going to be changed, at that time the release is going to be happen, and this is very much interesting in case of when you are using the corrosion inhibition coating. As your pH changes, the release is going to be happen, and onto that the onto the surface the release is going to be happen. So this is a kind of methodology we can encapsulate liquid active ingredients. For example, the liquid corrosion inhibitors, and then we can utilize it for the coatings, and we can mix it into the alkyd resin or maybe epoxy resin, and we can have this corrosion inhibition kind of coating. So second methodology of a preparation of a nano container is the halosite tube has naturally inherently they have this porous structure. But in case if you want to be have the spherical structure, in that case we can take let's say zinc oxide, we will take it and onto that we functionalize it. Surrounding that layer by layer assembly we can carry it out using this ultrasound methodology in which you can put the corrosion inhibitor surrounding to that, and we can add into the coatings again. So based on this layer by layer assembly, as your pH changes, the release is going to be happen. So you can see onto top graph. These are the corrosion rates are there based on the different kinds of nano container loadings have been happened. So this is also one of the possible methodology which can be utilized for responsive release. Okay, as response changes, sometimes the temperature based responsive release also can be carried out, or maybe pH based responsive release. So, for example, the in some part of our I mean to say stomach, for example, the pH is always an acidic in nature. So if you prepared in a kind of a container which is maybe a loaded at the drug loaded container in which the release is going to be happen at that particular time. So this responsive release methodology is very much important. For example, those who are having the diabetic patients, in that case, every day they are taking 2 injections, for example. So what is happening is the release happens is immediately. Later the effect is after 12 hours, the effect is being nullified. So in such a cases, if you want to be have the release, consistent release for longer time of a drug, we can utilize this responsive nano container based methodology to release this. So these on to right hand side, you can see these are the halosite tubes are there. which have been, we can separate each other using this ultrasound, using this shearing mechanism. So each step, each tube will be separated out, and then you can load the active ingredients. So this is also one of the methodology what I was explaining about this corrosion inhibition case. So calcium zinc phosphate is the one pigment utilized generally for anti-corrosive treatment. So in that one we can utilize a benzotriazole, for example. This is an anti-corrosive agent, and then we can add it layer by layer assembly onto this material, and we can have this release rate which is consistent for the longer hours. So this is basically has been taken into the water, but as it goes into the coating, so the release will be, let's say, if at some section, let's say corrosion has started, so pH is going to be changed. At that time, the release is going to be happen onto these deposits, and then the release is going to be happen. Okay, now let us take, I think we have 15 minutes have left, so I want to touch to the microreactors also. I will do it faster now. So let us talk about one methodology about how we can utilize this cavitation process onto the large scale production of calcium carbonate. So calcium carbonate, if you look, it has number of applications. For example, toothpaste is very small application. Major of calcium carbonate is being utilized into the PVC industries for PVC as a filler. Almost 30% filler is being calcium carbonate is being utilized. But interesting aspect about that one, that calcium carbonate has a very specific phase is required. What it is called as a calcite kind of phase, as well as there are a number of large demand is there for the calcium carbonate for the sealing agents. Okay, PVC sealants, adhesive industry is one of the nanoparticles have been desired there of a calcium carbonate. So most of the clay, I mean to say this calcium carbonate, major industries are PVC industry, paper, paint, plastic, detergent, and some part like toothpaste or the small consumer cosmetics and other places. So if you look to this reaction, how calcium carbonate is being produced, basically they take the ore of a calcium carbonate. For example, again, Rajasthan is the major source of a calcium carbonate. I will tell you what is the commercial methodology and how we can use this methodology to produce it a large scale at a nano size with a particular morphology, what it is called as a calcite phase. So it is, they bring the ore from the Rajasthan. There are two sources. Rajasthan is one and one is from the Karnataka. But the purity of what we call that of a calcium content is more in the whiteness wise. It is more in the case of Rajasthan. So they take the stones or ore, they burnt it out, they form calcium oxide. Then after forming calcium oxide, they hydrolyze it to make it a calcium hydroxide. Whatever the CO2 has been liberated during this calcium oxide formation, they recycle, reuse that CO2 gas, put it into the calcium hydroxide to make it a final calcium carbonate. There are these are the been used in the batch process, this calcium carbonate production. But the reaction time it takes around 2 hours, as well as again there is the issue of what it is called as a particle size distribution. So calcium carbonate has a number of grades are there based on the sizes, shapes, as well as based on the whiteness. So the majority of application I'm looking at an adhesive. I told you about the PVC adhesives where this nano size calcium carbonate is being utilized. It is also very much interesting reaction. This reaction is in a three-phase reaction in which water, calcium hydroxide, and a CO2 gas. So all three phases have been involved in that one. This is reaction is also a mass transfer with a chemical reaction in which calcium carbonate is being produced in this case. So it is basically non-elementary reaction, and you can have this nucleation initiation, nucleation, and growth. So it is also a reactive crystallization process. Okay. So this is a mechanism. I don't want to go to the detail, but dissolution of a CO2 plays very much important role to attack onto the calcium sites. I am just going faster to reduce this one. It is very interesting to know that there are three phases are there in this reaction, which is initiation, nucleation, initiation, nucleation, and a growth. So precipitation, if it is more, is the your what is called metastable solid, the particle size is going to be increased. So if you took it is using the ultrasound, we can the CO2 gas, whatever the methodology has been shown over here, we can produce calcium carbonate. But here the sizes, shapes you are going to be get on a cubic, okay, but it takes longer time, as well as ultrasound we cannot use it for the large scale production. So this is in a kind of shape you can see using the myristic acid. So basically hydrophobic calcium carbonate is required for these adhesives. So add some functionalizing agent, for example myristic acid, so you can see this calcium carbonate is been functionalized, which is become hydrophobic in nature. So there are number of issues are there to produce this nano size calcium carbonate at a large scale. So effective utilization of CO2 gas, then the shape was important, time required should be reduced, and it should be very much comparable with an grind calcium carbonate equivalent to that. So in that case, we can utilize this hydrodynamic cavitation, in which you can utilize the orifice or venturi and put the CO2 gas as a LC zone where the cavity collapse is going to be happen. And because of that large dissolution of a CO2 gas, it has been within a closed container. If you keep this methodology, you will get a calcium carbonate of a particular shape, what it is called calcite shape, as well as you can utilize this for production. So within 14 minutes, using this hydrodynamic based cavitation process, we can produce this nano size calcium carbonate. You can see these are the some of the shapes you can see, which is a cubic kind of shape for the calcium carbonate. You can reduce the particle size up to less than 50 nanometer, okay, and distribution is almost narrow. So these are the interesting things required for this calcium carbonate. Okay. So, Dr. Shriram, I think how much time is there?
Almost time is over, Professor Shirish.
Yeah,
So if you see the message box, some queries are there. So can you please read it out and answer those queries?
yeah. Shall I go ahead with the micro reactor or shall I stop it? I was saying, shall we stop it?
Yeah, we will
Yeah,
stop it and just answer some queries which are in chat box.
yeah, okay.
Please open your chat box.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, does pH of the solution will vary along with the ultrasonication time for the anionic based nanoparticle added in water? I think pH won't have the impact basically. Okay, onto this pH is not going to be changed. It is only a radical generation. It is been happening during this during the cavitation process. Okay, so we need to be maintain the pH. For example, in the Janus particle case, if you look, the ammonia is solution has been added at the end. Okay, so the only the surface tension of the liquid has the large impact, or maybe you can say hydrophilic or hydrophobic nature has the impact onto the cavitation. The cavitation intensity will reduce if it is more, what it is called the solvent is polar in nature. Okay, that has only the impact. pH has doesn't have the impact onto the cavitation. Okay.
Surface forces of a material can be altered with the help of ultrasound.
Yeah, yeah.
But pH
Won't have any impact.
don't have any effect. So that the top question is
Can you
just one above of this question. Best suitable technique to fabricate halloysite nanotube.
halloysite nanotubes? Naturally it is you are getting the halloysite nanotubes, or it is also commercially available. Actually, the purity of halloysite nanotube is very much important. So you need to purchase the tubes, and you need to be used an ultrasound to make the separate out the each tube. Sometimes they have been attached with each other. So we using this ultrasound cavitations, you can make the bring out the sharing. So it is available actually commercially. So no need to prepare fabricate. If you want to fabricate a container using the halloysite tubes, then we need to be functionalize it within a surfactant, and then you need to add the whatever active ingredients you want to add. Okay.
One question is there, if you read it out from the chat box, is it possible to use ultrasonics for bulk crystal growth?
Bulk crystal growth. Yeah,
So
actually,
it will create a
for
local effect.
crystallization process, you can utilize it, ultrasound cavitation, and people commercially pharmaceutical industries are utilizing it for the crystallization process. What it is called anti-solvent crystallization. So ultrasound, using the ultrasound, there is the anti-solvent crystallization process. If you used it, the distribution of particles you can bring down to narrow distribution. Okay, that can possible using the ultrasound. Yeah, next.
Then one question is best or suitable technique to fabricate. Okay, that question already done. What are the disadvantages of the microreactors?
Microreactors. Disadvantage of microreactors. Yeah, actually, microreactors have one limitation that we cannot have the currently with not possible to utilize the heterogeneous systems using the microreactor based methodology. This is one of the important limitations of a microreactor. Otherwise, for the homogeneous reactions, we can utilize the microreactor methodology here. Okay, even high exothermic reaction like toluene nitration also we can carry out using this microreactor methodology. Yeah, yeah. Next. Can you unmute Dr. Shriram? Yeah. Yeah. Any other? I please ask. Does pH? This is over.
There is one question. What are the effects of sonochemistry on the nanotoxicity problem?
There is, I mean, it is not been identified anything about the ultrasound impact on the toxic cases actually. Okay. But if you use it for the longer time, there is one limitation. I told you that the fusion occurs of the particle, or maybe erosion of the material also it is going to be occur. These are the two important limitations are there when you use the ultrasound for a longer time. But toxification, obviously, it is going to be given an itching process or maybe in an extraction. So obviously, the if the toxic compounds are there, they're going to be come out of the, let's say, in the extraction process. So obviously come out of the what say from the material, and it will have the toxic effect. But as an ultrasound as a such won't have the impact on that. Okay, you might have seen case of morning session how waste separation using the ultrasound process the Ashok has told. So there is a particular frequency as well as the probe size and wattage. These are the three important parameters. It is decided on the which kind of material, what processing you are carried out. So for the bioprocessing or food processing, you might have seen the Ashok has utilized the different kind of ultrasound, not like an high wattage ultrasound. Okay, so frequencies are important and wattage are important in that case. Yeah.
So I think maximum queries have been answered, and the session was wonderful, Professor Shirish.
Yeah.
And dear participants, professors and madams, I'm hoping that all must have enjoyed this session, and all synthesis routes of the nanoparticles via ultrasound, which are being, which are, which are, which are, which will be used for green processes for various applications, right? So if anybody have query, one query is there: why hydrodynamic size increases after sonication? That is because of local heating, basically. Local heating produces aggregation of the nanoparticles. One question is there, Shirish:
Yeah.
why
Actually,
hydrodynamic size? Huh?
no, hydrodynamic size of a particle increases. Basically, as you give more time for the reaction, I have told you that a tea mixing, if tea mixing is more than the tea reaction, so obviously then your reaction time is more. So obviously the precipitation reaction, for example, you are giving more time rather than nucleation, we are giving more time into the precipitation or growth phase, what we call, and because of that, the particle is going to be, going to be aggregate or maybe going to, ripening is occurs, and because of that, overall size is going to be increased. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Shiv.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Professor Shirish.
Thank you,
We'll
Dr.
conclude
Shriram,
this session.
for giving me opportunity to for this FPP nanotechnology for the processes and the sustainable development. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. All participants will you. Tomorrow's link will be shared separately for day 2, right? So you can join accordingly.